Ukrainian border guards use drones to destroy enemy positions on Kursk front. That headline, it's dated December 30, 2025. And it's really more than just a military report.
It's a signpost, isn't it? It shows this radical, almost terrifying paradigm shift that's happening in global security. The whole rule book is being thrown out.
Absolutely. And it's not just being thrown out, it's being rewritten on the fly.
What's so profound is that yesterday's prototypes, the specialized drones, the AI concepts, robotics, they're today's frontline weapons. And the grand strategies, the political negotiations, they now hinge on the outcomes of battles fought by these machines.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arian in the latest deep dive by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover exactly that, how the conflict in Ukraine is forcing this paradigm shift and really rewriting the rules of modern warfare.
Our mission today is to analyze the source material you've shared. We're going to focus heavily on that critical intersection between advanced technology and the grueling physical reality of the war on the ground. And we'll be looking at the major defense planning shifts that are happening because of it all across Europe and in the United States.
And we are dealing with some critically important and, frankly, shocking source material today. So stick with us, because we will be analyzing the precise mechanics of how a single anonymous individual rigged about 80 FPV goggles with C4,
leading to multiple injuries across 4 different Russian oblasts. It's just a chilling example of sophisticated asymmetric sabotage.
It really is.
And we will detail the roles of these new, silent, sophisticated platforms. What are robot dogs and unmanned ground vehicles doing in the trenches of Ukraine right now? The kind of critical combat and recon jobs that the traditional, noisy FPV drones just can't handle.
Plus, we'll dive into the proposed multi-billion-dollar drone wall across the EU's eastern border, and the deep, complex budgetary tensions affecting U.S. defense readiness, even as President Zelensky prepares for a pretty high-stakes meeting with President Trump. This deep dive is about understanding the future of conflict as it's happening right now.
Okay, so let's start with that breaking news context from the source material. The Ukrainian border guards using drones to hit Russian positions on the Kursk front.
This confirms 2 critical things at once. First, Ukraine's ability to conduct these sophisticated deep strike operations. And second, the geographical reality that the lines of contact now actually run through parts of Kursk Oblast. It forces Russia to devote resources to defend its own territory.
And that's the key. It's the persistent pressure this creates that is the actual strategic advantage. We're seeing reports of drone attacks in border areas like Belgorod and Kursk, causing power outages for thousands of people. This ability to strike vital infrastructure well beyond the main combat zone, it completely shifts Russia's defensive calculus. It forces a constant, stressful reallocation of their resources.
And this capability, it really just proves the central thesis here about the security paradigm shift. The future of war is now. The sources detail how Ukraine is pushing the limits of technology, particularly with unmanned ground vehicles, or UGVs.
Well, what's so fascinating here is the sheer speed of development. I mean, if you can't achieve air superiority because of these robust defense systems...
Which they can't.
Exactly, which they can't. So you have to dominate the ground level with smaller, cheaper, protected systems. Take the Reshaping, a stealthy kamikaze ground drone. It carries anti-tank mines.
But its key feature isn't really the mine, is it?
No, not at all. The key strategic feature, and the reports note this specifically, is that it's resistant to Russian electronic warfare jamming.
And that EW resistance is everything. For our listeners, EWs is basically the constant battle to blind, jam, or hijack the enemy's radio, GPS, and drone signals. Russia dedicates a massive amount of power to jamming the front.
So a system like the Neutralized or the bigger four-wheel drive Fury UGV, which mounts a 7.62 millimeter machine gun for attack and surveillance up to 2 kilometers, it solves that major operational problem, maintaining control through all that interference.
They're replacing human infantry in the most high-risk roles, reconnaissance, delivery, things like that.
And then we get to the really uncanny stuff, the rise of what soldiers are calling robot dogs, things like the second-generation Brit Alliance dog, or BAD-2.
And we're not talking about clunky science fiction props here.
No, not at all.
These are silent, highly maneuverable platforms. They're often delivered right to the front line by Vampire bomber drones.
What?
But why use a dog when FPV drones are so cheap and common?
Because FPV drones, for all their speed and how devastating they are, have major limitations. They're noisy, you can hear them coming, and crucially, they lose their signal the moment they enter a subterranean space.
Like a bunker or sewers, tunnels.
Exactly. The robot dogs fill that gap. They give you stealth and subterranean access. They can silently gather intelligence or place charges where a drone simply cannot maintain a link.
It just shows the complexity of this multi-domain war being waged by remote control. And this adaptability, it extends seamlessly to the sea as well.
Absolutely. The maritime surface drones like the Megura V5 and the Kozak Mamai, they are proven successes in naval denial. But the sources are now pointing to the increasing use of the Marichka,
The underwater drone.
a 6-meter-long, multi-purpose underwater drone with a phenomenal 1,000-kilometer range. The ability to conduct strikes against naval assets at that distance, it dramatically changes the calculus for the Black Sea Fleet.
Okay, here's where the high-tech conversation pivots to something, well, clandestine and terrifying. We found the detailed account of that Russian FPV goggle sabotage incident from early February 2025.
Yeah.
It shows the vulnerability that's just inherent in this rapid technological deployment.
This is a perfect illustration of psychological warfare. It leverages the weakness of volunteer supply chains. Reports indicate that around 80 sets of Skyzone Cobra FPV goggles were sent to various Russian military units.
As part of what looked like a legitimate humanitarian aid donation.
Exactly.
But the sources confirmed these shipments were Trojan horses. Within days, 8 separate explosions took place across multiple occupied oblasts, Belgorod, Kursk, Luhansk, and Donetsk. They injured Russian drone operators who were probably just setting up for their next mission.
And the detail in the sources is just truly shocking. Investigators found that each pair of goggles had C4 explosives, a detonator, and a concealed battery packed inside.
And the trigger mechanism.
The trigger mechanism was wired directly to the internal cooling fan.
I mean, can you imagine you receive this desperately needed gear only to have the simple, mundane act of turning on the cooling fan become a deadly booby trap?
And that single anonymous act, carried out by an individual who reportedly left Russia just days later, it paralyzes the volunteer supply chain.
Of course. It forces every soldier to question every single piece of donated equipment. It slows down the distribution of essential tech across the entire front line. It is a brilliant, kinetic act of psychological sabotage.
It creates a self-sustaining security issue. It requires endless internal vetting and resources to fix, which diverts attention from the actual front.
This reliance on drones, though, it has another side effect.
Yeah.
Neither side is really achieving air superiority.
Right, because both have unusually extended ground-based air defense, or GBAD.
Right, all the surface-to-air missile systems. Which means the advanced fifth-generation fighters, they just can't consistently operate safely. This mutual air denial, it fundamentally shapes the entire infantry combat environment.
All this futuristic hardware, the UGVs, the EW systems, it exists because the air is denied and the enemy is engaged in this brutal war of attrition.
But what happens when the high-tech fails? We have to pivot now to the brutal, grinding reality on the ground, the meat grinder.
And this is the immense strategic contradiction of this conflict. Despite all the technological advancement, the human cost it's catastrophic. Small squad attacks, whether on foot, motorbikes, or in BMPs, face extremely high casualty rates.
The reports say between 70 and 80%.
70 to 80%.
That's a staggering loss rate. It means the core of the war is still fought in this deeply primitive, high-attrition way. It's why basic armaments and manpower, alongside drone control, are still the most important factors.
And it's why artillery remains, as the sources clearly state, the king of the battlefield.
This is not the mobile, sweeping maneuver warfare that military strategists have studied for decades.
Not at all. It is a slow, grinding, year-long slog. It involves leveling entire cities like Bakhmut and Avdiivka. Tanks are often relegated to infantry support roles, used almost like a mobile shield or a self-propelled gun, not for deep thrusts.
And we can see this attrition reflected in specific operational hotspots, particularly in the Pokrovsk sector of Donetsk, based on recent February 2025 reports.
Ukrainian forces are demonstrating incredible resilience and tactical sophistication there. Reports confirm the 12th Azov Special Forces Brigade successfully repelled a major Russian attack near Malinivka. They secured a critical defensive line.
And these small defensive wins are what prevent a catastrophic collapse of the line.
They are. Yet the pressure is immense. At the same time, sources confirm Russian forces managed to capture Dokhne and Zelenivka and advance near 7 other settlements. It speaks to that constant, painful back and forth.
where every single tree line and every ruined village is traded at horrific cost.
But the elite Ukrainian units are showing incredible tactical adaptability. They're melding advanced tech with disciplined infantry movement. We saw this in the details of the Shaman Special Forces Battalion operation. They reclaimed a key stronghold not by a mass assault, but by smart, stealthy maneuver.
They use settlements and dense tree lines for cover, completely avoiding open fields where they would have been instantly spotted by drones or hit by artillery. Then they infiltrated the position.
And systematically cleared out the remaining survivors using marksmen with thermal scopes, and then finished the job with specialized drones for observation and targeting. It's highly technical, elite infantry work executed with almost World War I-style cunning.
Meanwhile, further north in the Kupiansk sector in Kharkiv, the story is one of confirmed operational difficulty for Russia, despite their claims.
Yes, our sources indicate that Ukrainian forces have liberated most of Kupiansk.
And this success is creating significant internal political stress for the Russian Ministry of Defense. This is where the information war really starts to overlap with the battlefield reality.
The Russian MOD is clearly intensifying its efforts to cover up these territorial losses. They recently resumed these highly detailed situational reports on December 27th, but they're relying heavily on lower-ranking commanders to make public claims, specifically claiming control of central and northeastern Kupiansk.
Which is a transparent attempt to manage the widespread criticism coming from their own military bloggers, the mill bloggers. They're openly accusing the Ministry of Defense of exaggerating or fabricating successful operations.
And when a major military is fighting a war against its own internal critical voices as much as it is fighting the enemy, well, that signals profound strategic weakness.
Which brings us to the strategic context. Global powers are reacting to the lessons learned from this ground war. Let's look at the U.S. first and the political bombshell that dropped in December 2025.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth issued a pretty significant order. Develop plans for cutting 8% from the defense budget annually for the next 5 years.
That's a potential total reduction of 32 to 40%. I mean, that suggests a radical pivot in U.S. defense strategy.
It is an unprecedented cut. And critics are right to be concerned. Cuts of that magnitude would force serious reductions in personnel and capital, likely impacting readiness at major commands like URCOM or CENTCOM.
Right, when stability is needed most.
Exactly. But the exemptions from that cut plan, they reveal everything about the new U.S. priorities. And they mirror the lessons from Ukraine.
Okay, so what's exempted?
Modernization of nuclear weapons and missile defense, operations at the southern U.S. border, and, crucially, the acquisition of one-way attack drones and other munitions.
So the Pentagon is clearly prioritizing this aggressive shift toward cheaper, high-impact, unmanned systems, even if it risks readiness in legacy areas. The bipartisan resistance this is facing, this is going to be a defining political fight over U.S. military funding for years.
And while the U.S. debates these massive cuts, Europe is moving toward unified defense integration. This is exemplified by that ambitious proposal for a continent-spanning drone wall.
This proposal came directly in response to that concerning Russian drone incursion into Poland back in September 2025. The plan is for a defensive network along the entire EU's eastern border. It would use a complex mix of sensors, defense systems, and jamming tech to detect and neutralize aerial threats.
This is a critical security development. And the sources note that the EU plans to cooperate directly with Ukraine on its development. That's a huge strategic move.
It's leveraging Kyiv's hard-won battlefield experience against drone attacks and turning their necessity into a continent-wide security advantage.
Exactly.
This brings us back to the ultimate conceptual shift driving all these policy changes. The acceleration toward artificial general intelligence, or AGI, in warfare. The Ukraine conflict is just forcing the pace of technological adoption.
And AGI is identified in the sources as the capability that continues to stand out above all others, mostly because it has the power to control and coordinate all the other systems we've mentioned, from UGVs to directed energy weapons.
So it's the essential control layer for the future battlefield.
Yes, and NATO is actively preparing for that reality through the development of the Multi-Domain Combat Cloud, or MDC2.
Which isn't just some fancy software suite. It's a commitment to total interconnectivity across the entire alliance.
It creates a resilient data-centric advantage. We're talking about seamlessly linking all national and NATO assets, from reconnaissance platforms to fighters to ground forces via high-speed links like SCOM and Link 16.
The goal is just to drastically increase the speed and accuracy of decision-making, to ensure a warfighting advantage over any slower, less integrated adversary.
Right. And the pace of change is so rapid that the sources even briefly mention these related, more abstract concepts that are already emerging. Things like directed energy weapons and the philosophical discussions around neurotechnology.
You mean connecting advanced tech, like implants or devices that read thoughts directly with human operators?
Exactly. The boundary between the human operator and the autonomous machine is blurring faster than anyone predicted.
So if we synthesize everything we've covered, the tech, the brutal ground fighting, the radical policy shifts, the core tension remains this.
The rapid adoption of future tech, whether it's UGVs, robot dogs, or these AGI-controlled concepts like MDC-2, is happening at the same time as this agonizingly slow, high-casualty, almost World War I-style infantry attrition in places like Pokrovsk.
We are in a state of simultaneous technological evolution and tactical stagnation.
It's a profound and, frankly, terrifying juxtaposition. The battlefield is both hyper-modern and agonizingly old school at the exact same moment.
Now, we established that AGI is seen as the capability that will ultimately control these future complex weapon systems. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. AI programs like AlphaGo have already demonstrated irrational moves that lead to victory, moves that fundamentally surprised and baffled human experts. So if NATO and Ukraine begin integrating truly generalized artificial intelligence into their strategic decision-making chain, how will they maintain strategic control and predictability when their systems might start making moves that are technically optimal for victory, but entirely foreign to human intuition? That is the unpredictable challenge of true autonomous warfare. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.